Okay, Mercy is not as bad as War of the Worlds, so I don't know where all these reviewers are coming from. I have not seen War of the Worlds. That movie, I've seen enough videos on it to know that it's probably not worth my time. It looked terrible. It looked like it was basically a 90-minute Amazon ad. But Mercy is directed by Tamir Bekmambetov. He was probably best well known as directing Wanted from 2006. He also directed the remake of Ben Hur that came out in 2016. And I recall his name from some of the films back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Day Watch, Night Watch were kind of like a Russian sci fi type movie that got a lot of praise for the stylist way they were filmed back then. He was also one of the producers of Amazon's War of the Worlds. And the movie starts Chris Pratt as Chris Raven. I don't know why his name's the same as the character. And also stars Rebecca Ferguson as Judge Maddox. So when Chris Raven wakes up in the chair of the Mercy Court presided over by Judge Maddox, an advanced AI designed to expedite court proceedings in a future Los Angeles ridden with crime, Chris learns he is accused of murdering his wife and has 90 minutes to prove his innocence. So that's the general overall census of the movie. The movie starts off with a little bit exposition in regards to how the Mercy Court came about with Chris Evans' character. No, Chris Raven. Chris Evans? How many Chris's are in Hollywood? Chris Pratt's character, Chris Raven, doing the voiceover in regards to why the court was created, the crime across the city, creating red zone districts that aren't supposed to allow for the free will of people moving about. These are heavily crime-ridden areas, or there's where a lot of homeless encampments are, and there's a lot of crime supposedly around that. So you can kind of see the movie as anti-homeless, anti-poverty, pro-capitalist, pro-cop. But if you throw all that out the window, it doesn't really dive too much into that. So some of the reviews I've seen that cover it, I mean, yeah, you can call it propaganda or pro AI. I don't really get a pro AI stance from the overall general of the movie. But, anyways, Chris awakes after the intro monologue of how everything started and learns that he was charged with the murder of his wife. The AI Judge Maddox provides the process overview in that he has 90 minutes to bring his probability of innocence down to 92%, currently sitting at like 96 something at one point in the movie, and it kind of fluctuates throughout depending on the investigations that he leads down. The movie is a screen life movie, so basically it's Chris Pratt sitting in a chair talking to Rebecca Ferguson's AI, trying to prove his innocence, accessing the entire database of the LA County system that they currently live in as this test pilot. Kind of reminds me of like RoboCop, but instead of having a robotic half human cyborg cop, it's more AI based around crime prevention and saying, hey, if you commit a crime, you got 90 minutes to prove your innocence or else you're going to be executed. They say it's like state offenses, but they don't really go into what that is. Probably murder, rape, other things like that that are, I guess, felonies. But anyways, it's a screen life movie, similar to films like Searching and Missing or War of the Worlds. But it does have a budget. The budget seems like it was used fairly well for one of these screen life films. Use a lot of augmented reality in his chair that he is sitting in regards to having these conversations with the Judge Maddox AI, making phone calls to different people to learn more about what happened, as it is initially seen that, you know, he went to his wife's or his house. They're kind of on a split. They don't really go into detail about it, but he goes there. They show some video footage from their doorbell camera. You can hear there's something going on inside the house. And then next thing you know, he's being drunk at a bar, and then the cops are trying to arrest him. A fight ensues. He's seeing all this footage. He doesn't remember any of it. And so he needs to figure out, A, if he did it, because he doesn't remember, or B, is there something else going on? Did somebody else murder his wife? So the beginning of him in the chair is, you know, him trying to sober up. Basically, he's dealing with a hangover, maybe a slight concussion from running into the other law enforcement officers that arrested him. He begins to start his investigation, looking through different avenues that could have possibly caused his wife's murder, whether it was, you know, an affair, whether it was something else going on. It's a lot of back and forth with him, talking to his daughter, trying to figure out what's going on there, he's He had an incident in the past, so he's kind of an alcoholic. Well, no, he's not kind of. He is an alcoholic. Started drinking after his partner gets killed in an incident on the job. And he holds himself accountable for it and wishes he would have did something differently at the time. And so that leads him to drink and causes the rift between his wife, his child, to where his predicament is now. Talks to his sponsor, who happens to also work at the same company his wife works at, which is, foreshadowing, I guess. And so you just follow the investigation. He has a current partner who also he taps into, get a lay of the land around the crime scene. Partner also is, I guess, has access to their drone bicycles that they use in the movie. I think some of the stuff around the screen life had a little more budget than a lot of these other previous movies, even though Missing and Vanishing were pretty decent investigation movies. This one has a bit more budget, a bit more action. Some of the scenes that occur, Chris Raven is watching as he's diving into this investigation with the AI. Rebecca Ferguson does a admirable job, I guess, with the writing she's giving, kind of playing an AI, very stoic face for most of it. There are some aspects of the movie where the AI seems to going off its guardrails in regards to the investigation. You learn more about the motivation of why his wife was murdered and how it leads back to him. That would be too much of a spoiler. Not that there's too big of a spoiler in the movie, but a lot of it, especially towards the end, you kind of see where it's going, who the culprit is, why they might be doing it. There's a couple, I guess, twists in the movie that make it both pro-cop and anti-cop at the same time. And the movie also, a lot with the AI, is pro-AI and anti-AI at the same time. So it's kind of a hodgepodge that I don't think they really know what they wanted to do. They just wanted to make a movie to shut your brain off, go in, be entertained for a couple hours. And if you go into the movie with that mentality, you'll probably have an all right time. It is very formulaic, especially for the screen life movies, kind of a generic thriller, nothing special with the acting. Chris Pratt's a little questionable in the start of the movie, but you come to realize kind of his character background. I almost felt as if maybe this is what Chris Pratt is like in real life, because he kind of has a bad reputation. Maybe that's impacting the types of films he's ending up in over the last year or two. But if you're into generic thrillers with, decent production, okay acting, then Mercy is definitely not as bad as most critics say. Definitely would give it 2 stars. It's an all right movie. Definitely not worth the 3. Starring Chris Pratt, Rebecca Ferguson, and directed by one of the producers of War of the Worlds. 2 stars.